Thank you, Ashwin, for the kind introduction. In fact, it's a pleasure for me to be joining the Dynamic CIO Enterprise Innovation Summit 2021, organized by Greyhead Media India. In fact, it's a privilege to be joining the esteemed pool of experts uh, that will be joining me in the 3 days conference that we have, the thought leaders, the opinion leader, the expert, the strategist from the tech industry, government, private sector, corporate, civil society, and media. We live in very amazing times. Just as since the end of 2019, almost 20 months running, this pandemic has changed our life in a manner and fashion unfathomable even 2 years back. While there have been a lot of unfortunate loss of lives, loss of loved ones, many are still suffering. What also has happened, it has opened a new horizon of opportunities. So, for me, it's a great occasion to share with you some of the things that have been happening in the world of digital transformation, particularly in the development landscape. The institute that I represent, Institute for Policy, Advocacy and Governance, IPAC, is in fact one of the very few knowledge outfits, think tanks from the developing global south, which has spread its wings around the world. Today, as I speak, we have presence in South Asia in both Dhaka, Bangladesh, and Delhi, India. In the Asia Pacific region, it's in Melbourne, Australia. In Europe, it's in Austria, Vienna. And very recently, we got activated Africa and Mauritius, and in Middle East in Dubai, United Arab Emirates. Particularly, I'm very humbled and inspired to be starting our chapter in India. We are the first knowledge outfit from India's neighborhood and developing global south to have started a journey in India, New Delhi. And we already have a bright young Indian team working with us. So, in the coming days and years, we hope to make positive contribution in the Indian knowledge industry, and we're very much excited by this opportunity as well. Now, before I move to the presentation, given the time at which we are meeting, because of which we are also online, I would request you to join me in 10 seconds, remembering those who have lost during the pandemic and in prayers for those who are still suffering and trying to come back to normal life fighting the pandemic. So please join me, no matter where you are, in 10 seconds of silent, somber reflection. Thank you. Thank you for joining me in the prayers and best wishes. As I was saying, the last time something similar happened was Second World War, and most of us were not even born then. And it affected many countries, many people. But this current pandemic, COVID-19, there is not a single individual, family, community, society, nation, region, continent that has not been affected by this pandemic. So this is probably a once in a lifetime experience that has seen us connected end to end from this part of the world to that part of the world. In fact, on that note, I've very recently written something which you may find both interesting and intriguing, as is quite evidenced by the topic of the thing that I've written, which you can access at www.covidthoughts.org. With that background, what I would like to do first is to also share with you some of my colleagues in the G20 community who joined me in recently writing a policy brief for the G20 Leadership Summit, which is expected to be held in Rome, October 30-31. And I was very privileged to lead a team of very capable, seasoned experts in the field of digital transformation, which I'll share with you. Now you're seeing, now I'm sharing the slide with you. As you see, I was joined by Head of Digital Transformation of World Bank, Bhuthenia Guermazi, and also Senior Economist, that is Tania Gomez. And I was also joined by Head of Digital Transformation of Asian Development Bank, Thomas Abel, and head of Google's digital transformation and digital ventures, Daryl Thyre, and one of our colleagues from Melbourne who heads the Lord Mayor Charitable Foundation, Catherine Brown. So we worked closely for the last 2-3 months, and some of the thing I'm going to share with you is also outcome of the in-depth research analysis we did in last few months, some of which will come out in the slides I'm going to share with you now. Without further ado, let me now move to the presentation. So first, what I'm going to do with you, share with the outline of what I will present with you in the next 20-25 minutes. Here is the mental mapping, and just to give you an idea, the themes or topics I intend to address or cover in the next 20-25 minutes. First is, as which I have already alluded to you, how the digital transformation has been accelerated by the pandemic, which are some of the sectors which have been affected most by digital transformation. Sometimes I'll just say DT, which will mean digital transformation, and a pre-post pandemic scenario on some of the sectors most affected by digital transformation. Then the digital connectivity boom, which has been triggered by the pandemic. At the same time, a growing concern of the digital divide that is happening at the same time. And I will try to make a case for inclusive digital transformation in the years to come. And then one of the important sections of my presentation, which is how the digital transformation will driving forward the global development agenda, particularly the Sustainable Development Goal 2030. And then I'll hopefully wrap up with some takeaways, and then a parting audiovisual which will give a glimpse of the future that we are moving forward, triggered by the pandemic and then driven forward by the digital transformation. As already mentioned at the very beginning, I would like to share with you a 3-4 minute audio visual which will capture the essence of some of the initial remarks I have made and hopefully set the tone for the topics which I'm going to cover in the next 20-25 minutes. So let's have a look and listen into the audio visual. I hope the audiovisual has helped you relate better to some of the broader issues I was talking to you about: digital transformation, accelerated by the pandemic, global development agenda, how some of the multilaterals are also shifting resource allocation to digital transformation, so on and so forth. So now let's move to the main presentation. The four sectors which have been affected most by digital transformation are work, education, health, and trade. And the next couple of slides, I'll share with you the pre-pandemic and post-pandemic scenario in these four very important sectors. Work, as we all know, has changed so dramatically in last 20 months. Previously, the very traditional model was work from home, which is now completely gone mostly into digital online platform. So the board meetings have now been replaced by meetings in the Zoom or other platform. We have WebEx, so on and so forth. And just sharing few numbers, if you look at two very important continents, one is the European Union and US. Before the pandemic, only 5 to 6% people in the European Union were working from home, which has now jumped to 40%, almost 5-6 times growth. In US, 6% people used to work from home before the pandemic. Now, 1/3 of American people are working from home. And even in India, people working from home have grown fourfold during the pandemic. Education is another sector. As schools have been also affected by lockdown, schools, universities, students and children had very little option but to move to the e-education or e-learning platform provided by the digital technologies. So global edtech industry, which was around 18.65 billion before the pandemic, is now expected to grow phenomenally and become 350 billion by year 2025. And in US, the edtech industry was valued around 8.38 billion, which again is expected to grow in the post-pandemic era more than 2.5 times, and with an investment boost of $5 to $6 billion. In UK, the edtech industry was valued around £2 billion, which again will see a growth of more than 70%, becoming a £3.4 billion industry. Same has happened in India, and those of you who are in India are very familiar with the name Byju's. And the Indian e-learning app is now one of the most valued edtech company in the world, valued more than $16 billion. Not surprisingly, health is also one of the sectors which has been very significantly affected by the digital transformation. So the typical model we have had in the past, doctor-patient interaction, a patient would go to hospital or doctor's chamber, those are being more replaced by online activities. So lockdown and other measures in many instances have forced people to have interaction, engagement with doctors and hospital online. Of course, it's a hybrid model. So that is not to say the offline mode has completely gone out of the door. So we are moving to a more hybrid model of healthcare services. And the global investment in digital health prior to pandemic was around $7.7 billion in 2019. But it has grown exponentially, very significantly rather, and more than doubled with around $15 billion at the end of 2020. In US itself, the telehealth sector grew by almost 38 times and currently expected to be valued close to around $250 billion in the post-COVID period. Then trade. As most of us are aware, the e-commerce had a huge boost during the pandemic, driven by the digital platforms. And global e-commerce, which was valued around 3.5 trillion before the pandemic, has now become more than $4+ trillion industry. And the growth rate before the pandemic was around 20%. Now it's close to 26-27%. And before pandemic, some of the stellar performer in the e-commerce sector were US, Japan, China, South Korea, and UK. But what has happened because of pandemic, many other developing countries also, Southeast Asia, South Asia, Africa, has seen a surge For example, in Africa, the e-commerce platform Jumia has seen a 50% jump during the pandemic. Same thing has happened with a lot of other small outfits or big size outfits in South Asia, Southeast Asia, Asia Pacific. So obviously, all these have led to a boost in digital connectivity. So global internet users have also grown significantly during this time. If you look at 2019, the number of internet users globally was close to 4 billion, growing on an average somewhere between 6 to 8% in the 1.5 decade before that, and mostly driven by e-commerce, social media, and entertainment. This is how the growth curve looks like 2005 to 2019, a rise, steady rise, ranging somewhere between 6 to 8%. Then you have the pandemic and numbers shifting close to 4.6, 4.7 million, and internet users grew by 17%. Asia Pacific region currently represents 50% of the global internet users, and South Asia, where we live, currently has 17 to 18% of the global internet users. So growth has been exponential, particularly in the four sectors that I have mentioned, that is work, education, health, and trade. So this is how the internet access landscape looks in Asia Pacific and South Asia. Just as I have shared with you how digital connectivity, internet penetration has grown during the pandemic, what also is equally true that during the same time, the digital divide in certain cases, unfortunately, has only grown wider. So that is a concern moving forward. So in the next couple of slides, I'll share with you how the digital divide has been playing out globally and this part of the world. The growing digital divide. In the Asia Pacific region, if you look at the left side of the slide, you'll see, in spite of the fact that it has close to 50% coverage, it still lags behind other regions like Middle East and West, and still half of the people in Asia Pacific do not have access to internet. And then internet penetration has gone up during the pandemic, but one of the key challenges continues to be making available affordable internet access for the larger population who are still outside the digital net. So although the growth has happened during pandemic, the rate of growth penetration in Asia Pacific has been much lesser than to their other regional peers. And if you look at the slide, Asia Pacific lags behind Africa and Middle East in terms of growth. So Asia Pacific, in spite of being a very buoyant, economically promising region, there's much to be done for digital inclusivity. Coming to South Asia, where most of us live, the internet penetration is little more than 40%. And if you look at the regions, if you look at the slide on the left side, the bars, of the 18 sub-regions, South Asia is ranked 15, behind Central Asia, North Africa, and the world. So this is something I also, again, I wrote a piece in Hindu again on how South Asia's post-pandemic economic development significantly depends how much we can bridge the digital divide in a region which houses 1/4 of global population, 1/3 of global poor. That will be the key challenge for South Asia to meet in the coming years and decades. What unfortunately has happened in South Asia, that in terms of internet inclusivity index, most of the South Asian countries have fallen behind, whether it's India or Bangladesh or Pakistan or Nepal and Sri Lanka. If you look at the ranking at 2019 and 20, unfortunately, they have fallen behind during the pandemic. So it's a paradoxical situation. And among the countries, Sri Lanka has fallen significantly behind now ranked 77th from 68th. There's a gender dimension also, and the gender gap is 17%, which is quite significant in terms of access to internet. And also what is happening that whatever the growth of internet users is happening, it's significantly skewed in favor of the male. And gender gap is increasing in many regions of the world, including Gulf, Arab states, Asia Pacific, and Africa. So digital divide has a gender dimension, which unfortunately in certain cases have not been working in favor of women. And region-wise, there's disproportionate internet user penetration, many of the regions falling behind compared to other regions. And as expected, many of the developing regions, Asia Pacific, South Asia, are in a disadvantage because of larger number of lower income people not being able to afford the internet access, the digital connectivity. So in the last few slides, I hope I've been able to explain to you, as much as there is reason to be optimistic, that is, I would say, more cautious optimism. Because unless we make concrete, conscious effort to bridge the digital divide, there is a risk a significant portion of the population may be left behind. Even as we speak, globally, 3 billion people don't have access to internet. 2 billion people do not have any cell phone. So these are big numbers. But in the next couple of slides, I will make the case for inclusive digital transformation. Now, when we talk about making a case for inclusive digital transformation, what do we actually mean? Fundamentally, there are 4 pillars. 1, infrastructure. 2, capacity development. 3, continuous innovation. And 4th, making digital access affordable. These are 3 popular indexes that we use. One is the ICT Development Index, or IDI. Then we have Global Innovation Index, GII. And the last one is Internet Inclusivity Index, III. Looking at what is happening globally, there are 20 in the top 20 countries of the world which have made into this list of the 3 indices. Not surprisingly, it's mostly dominated by North America and Europe. And only 3 countries from Asia have made it to it. And again, not surprisingly, Hong Kong, Singapore, and South Korea. And even a developed country like Japan is only in the top 20, only among one of the indexes, which is IDI, which is ICT Development Index. So where is the gap? Where do we bridge the gap? Now, the reality is most of the developing countries continue to rely mostly on public fund government for 3 fundamental issues. As you see in the slide, the 3 circles. One is for infrastructure development, particularly as we make transition to 5G, artificial intelligence, 4th industrial revolution. There needs to be significant investment in infrastructure. Many governments in the developing countries simply do not have that kind of money. That will call for more public-private partnership. Then also, to make internet accessible, affordable, there's a need for subsidizing some of the internet access. And again, research and innovation is a continuous process. So these are very tricky times when many of these developing countries, like India, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, are struggling to provide healthcare services. At the same time, the development landscape driven by digital technology in certain instances is not being able to keep pace with the need of the hour. So what are the funding challenges? As I said, increasingly government are being forced to divert funds to healthcare sector. I remember about 2 months back, I wrote an op-ed for one of the very well-respected Indian media outlets, The Hindu, in which I shared how decades of negligence of investment in the health sector has made countries like India, Bangladesh, Pakistan face the challenging circumstances when COVID struck. So in the coming years, more and more money will go to health sector. And even international organizations, multilaterals like World Bank, Asian Development, and IMF have other areas to also attend. One being climate change, energy transition, the more and more growing refugee crisis. So we have more needs, less resources. Now, so far what I've tried to do is to help you understand the fundamental dynamics of the issues we are facing in terms of both digital transformation. What are the driving forces? What are the challenges? Where are the gaps? How do we bridge the gaps? Now I will discuss with you one of the core agenda today, how post-pandemic development agenda or Sustainable Development Goal Agenda SDG will be significantly influenced by digital transformation. Now, first is SDG 3, which is quality healthcare services. And as I was mentioning just a few minutes ago, that increasingly governments are forced to spend more on healthcare services, and we'll see a hybrid model of healthcare services in hospital and other healthcare service providers, which will be a combination of online offline platforms. And what is also happening because of our transition to a digital platform, people are now able to access quality healthcare services at more affordable costs. So this is one of the very noteworthy contribution of digital transformation in having a positive effect on one of the important SDG goal 3, that is good health and well-being. Then we have education, in which I think I have shared quite a significant amount of insights in the previous slides. And as stellar performers like Byju's, Tencent, Lark continue to provide platform to students and teachers, make available digital tools of learning, and there's competition digital platform. By and large, the education sector will benefit by having access to quality education services at more competitive price. So SDG 4, which is quality education, is undoubtedly being helped by digital transformation. And some of the stellar performers I have already shared with you, Byju's in India, Tencent in China, Lark in Singapore. What these organizations are doing during this pandemic, they have made available tools and kits which have been very helpful to both the students, teachers, and we have also seen how home education has picked up, where many parents have aided their children, and those tools made available by this edtech industry has made a very positive effect on quality education and at affordable price. Then we have the financial inclusion, which has been triggered or facilitated by digital transformation and has a very positive effect on two very important SDGs. SDG 8, which is decent work and economic growth. Then we have SDG 10, which is about reducing inequalities. What digital transformation has done by making available or facilitating the e-commerce, many of the e-financial services had reached the doorstep of many marginalized group, women, small entrepreneurs, and standard business operating processes like credit evaluation have been made easier by the digital finance apps, and which has opened a huge window for microcredits, which is being accessed by marginalized people, women, so on and so forth. Even banking services like bill payments, e-commerce shop, then shopping, then money saving, all have led to improved standard of living. So definitely a financial inclusivity or inclusive finance, which has been significantly supported by digital transformation, has had a positive effect on SDG 8 and SDG 10. Poverty alleviation, always a constant challenge in the developing world. What digital trade has done by connecting widely diverse spectrum of people, for example, women entrepreneurs or homemakers, no matter whether they're in rural areas, urban areas, have been able to use this platform to market their products and services, whether it's food products or ornaments or apparel or handicrafts. The middleman has been cut out, overhead costs has been brought down, and that has led to more profitability and more inclusive finance. So what it has done, in a way, the market access has been significantly helped by those social media platform, digital platform, and which has helped the marginalized group who otherwise may not have any role to play in this commercial platform has been able to actively participate, and that has led to reduced poverty and many cases also addressed hunger. From poverty alleviation, now let's move to SMEs. These are very interrelated. What happened actually in the very initial phase of the pandemic, SMEs took a big hit because the traditional brick and mortar model, all shops, restaurants, others were very badly affected. But as people increasingly became reliant on online ordering foods and regular some other common services including medicine, slowly SMEs started bouncing back. And now, thanks to the social media platform, digital platforms, e-commerce platform, the logistical services have gotten much better, and the SMEs have bounced back after the initial 6-8 months of pause or during which time they were struggling. So this has helped SDG 8, which is decent work and economic growth. Then we come to SDG 5, which is women's empowerment, which I have already explained in my previous slide when I was explaining how e-commerce, financial inclusivity have helped women. So one of the good thing is this digitalization going by data seem to be favoring more women than men, because many of the traditional employment opportunities were tilted towards men. But digital technologies and platform in certain ways have neutralized the gender bias more in favor of women than for men, and contributing very significantly positively to reducing the gender gap, which is SDG 5. Climate change is a big issue, and we know in coming November, the global leaders are supposed to meet for COP26 in Glasgow. India as a country has suffered a lot. The country has gone through 2 major cyclones. India has also a lot of internally displaced population. So by working at home, what has happened in many cases, fossil fuel burn has reduced, carbon emission has gone down, and we have seen those videos, floating around in the media, how dolphins have sprung up in the lakes, how many animals have come out of the forest, prowling in the street. So definitely, pandemic triggered in certain cases digital transformation. What it has done, it has helped us more transit to those kind of means and options for our day-to-day living, which has less carbon emission, including electric cars and others to which we are gradually transiting. Also, data centers are carbon neutral and carbon negative, helping us in making a transition to a business model which will be more climate friendly. So decrease in carbon emission, all these are having a positive effect on 2 SDGs. SDG 7, which is affordable and clean energy, and SDG 13, climate action. These are some of the good examples I would like to share with you. Eco Data Center in Sweden, world's first climate positive data center powered by renewable energy. And also we have DingTalk by Alibaba, which already has deployed 100,000 new servers to accommodate large number of remote workers. Now we are coming to the very close of my presentation, and before I go, I would like to capture some of the key takeaways from the last 20-25 minutes. So let me share the takeaways with you. First is, as I've said, that pandemic has definitely accelerated digital transformation, and the 4 sectors which have grown exponentially is work, health, education, trade. Then of course, all that has led to improved digital connectivity. Also, unfortunately, we have seen a yawning gap in the digital divide. So the challenge is, how do we make the digital transformation inclusive, bridge the digital divide? And to do that, some of the key elements we need: infrastructure, capacity building, innovation, making digital access affordable. And last not the least is, of course, the post-pandemic global development and the SDG goals. I have shared some with you. Because of time limitation, I could not go through all the 17 SDG goals, but I have shared 6-7 goals SDG positively affected by digital transformation. It gives a glimpse that in fact in the post-pandemic years, when we have less resources, more needs, technology will be one of the cost-effective drivers of development agenda. Now, as I come to the closing part of my presentation, I would like to thank Greyhead Media again for inviting me. It has been a pleasure to be with all of you, no matter which part of the world you have cared to join with me. And ideally, I wish there was an opportunity for some direct interaction, question, answer. But given the challenging circumstances we are currently living, I guess we have to wait a little bit. I'm sure those days are not too far away when travel restrictions are removed. We don't have to be in quarantine when we reach a particular country, and we can interact more. But in the meantime, if you have any questions, anything that you would care to share, feel free to contact me in my social media handles, which I am very pleased to share with you. We have Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn. Feel free to reach me any of the medias you find convenient. And last but not the least, I will end this with a short audio visual which will give you a sort of glimpse into the future we are moving forward in the coming days. A future, hopefully, of shared prosperity where no one is left behind, and a global development agenda where technology, 5G, digital transformation, fourth industrial revolution are expected to play an important role. Once again, thank you very much for joining me in this session. Stay safe, stay healthy. I look forward to continued engagement with you in the coming days. Thank you for being with me. All the best.